All right, so we'll hop into this. I'll just full disclosure, it's been probably 2 or 3 weeks since I saw the pilot, and I was on an airplane as I was watching it. So I may have lost a lot of the finer.
Not possible. I know you've got it all in your head.
I may have lost some of the finer points. But the first thing that I think that we should talk about is the genesis of everything. I know when I saw you in person, God, it's been almost 2 years. So it was last February. You were in the middle of writing. So it's been quite a long time since that has happened, but it's been even further long time since you have kind of started this whole process. So I know people will be really interested to hear about the genesis of the show. And one thing that you told me when we talked was how you were really fascinated by, and this actually just came up in this third episode that I saw, or maybe the second, they kind of ran together, but the closed captioning television spying that's happening all over London, and
Mm,
how that interests you, and that was kind of a big part of where Hunted came from.
yes. Well, to pick up on that point, we ended up using the fact that London is the most surveilled city in the world as part of the way that Aiden would meet with Sam. And if you've seen episode 3, then you see it's become a problem for him. But his strategy was to meet her in dead zones. And this is real. Even though there are thousands and thousands of cameras in London, there are all these little dead zones all over the place, which are spots where you're not in any CCTV camera's range. And so in the show, Aiden's idea is whenever he's going to meet secretly with Sam, he does it in one of these dead zones so that nobody can be aware that they're meeting. But that's ultimately how Natalie Thorpe catches up to him and realizes that he's been deceiving her. Is that in episode 3 or episode 4? You're looking at the,
I've seen it, so it must be at least in three.
must be in 3. Sorry, they all start to become one big episode in my memory. Um, the two things were the character of Sam, and how dysfunctional she is, and the contradiction of that, of somebody who's really good at manipulating other people, because she pretends to be other people to seduce men to get people's trust, and yet she herself is this really cold, emotionally isolated person. And then this world of private espionage, which is huge and which I hadn't seen before in a television series. And I thought the morality of that world is really interesting because they aren't working for the government. There's no presumption that what they're doing is for anybody's good. It's for hire. It's for profit. And I thought, for a paranoid spy thriller like this, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and selfishly, a question that I want to ask is about exposition, because I've always thought that exposition can almost kill or launch a show before it even gets going. So
Hmm.
was something in particular that struck me as really fascinating because you managed to pack a ton of exposition into an hour extremely well. So
Thank
can you talk about how you guys come about that? Because there's so much going on in that first episode to kind of bring you up to speed with who she is and what happens to her and how she kind of cycles back into her life.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's always a challenge when you're writing the pilot of anything, as you know, because you have to introduce viewers into a new world and new characters, and often you kind of feel the exposition being fed to you as a viewer. Okay, they're telling me this about, this character, this workplace, or whatever, and I really wanted to avoid that. So I worked really hard to tuck the information in there, but in a way that honestly left it up to the viewer to piece it all together. So that first hour, everything you need to know is there, but you have to be listening and paying attention, and then it all comes together. And it's interesting. I think some people like you, they got it, and other people were like, "What?" They struggled to piece it all together. But I like that kind of storytelling better, where the show is trusting in my intelligence, trusting in me to be paying attention, and it just feels like I'm connected to the show in a way that I'm not if it's all just sort of being hand fed to me.
So talk us through the pilot. It starts in Morocco, correct?
Right.
And then we kind of see this world almost as it's ending, so to speak. Do you think
Yeah,
that's a fair
that's
statement?
that's really absolutely. I think Morocco is sort of the last time Sam is at the top of her game, and you see her there in the midst of this operation for Byzantium, and it's twists and turns and very Mission Impossible like by design, right? Where she's with this man that she seduced, and she pretends to be killed, and then frees this guy that he's been holding hostage there. And you see she's having this secret love affair with one of her colleagues, Aiden, and that she's pregnant. And then it all goes wrong because she's at the cafe waiting to meet him. He doesn't show up. Gunmen do. She gets shot in the abdomen. And it'll never be the same. It'll never be the same because she can't go back to work trusting anybody she works with again. And something in her changes after that shooting. It's like Sam was a person who I think enjoyed tempting death, enjoyed putting herself in danger. It gave her a thrill. It's sort of like an addiction because it made her feel like she was stronger than death, like she could beat death. She was invulnerable. And then when she gets shot and she's pregnant, I think she doesn't feel invulnerable anymore. And slowly over the course of these 8 episodes, you see that emotions come in a way that they didn't before, and all those flashbacks to her childhood and the terrible things that happened to her. The way I read them they're things she doesn't want to be remembering, but she can't keep them out. I think being pregnant kind of reawakened all these things about her own mother and her own childhood that she'd rather forget, but she can't.
So she gets shot. Somehow we see her, is it a year later at this point or sometime within that year?
Yeah, so she's away for a year. We find her in Scotland recuperating.
And then comes back and won't tell anyone where she is, but oddly enough, everyone just kind of, accepts her back in, and then she gets put on assignment. So is there anything that you found, especially writing or crafting the story, that, again, it kind of goes back to the exposition, because now that she's back in the game, you now have to set up the rest of the season, correct?
Yes, that's right. And, we do have that big touchscreen table.
Which I love, by the way.
Thanks. Where we explain a lot about what the caper is, right? What the mission is, the bad guy that she's investigating. And there's a lot of information on that table that comes back in the next 8 episodes. But I think they take her back because, as she says, she can beat any polygraph. So it's not like they have any way of verifying where she's been. And as Deacon Crane says to Keel, her boss, we need her. And Keel says, yeah, well, and she knows it. So, she proves her value to the team. But increasingly we see this question of who is trying to kill her and why starts intruding on the mission, which becomes the problem of the year.